It's another episode. Brett Allen here chatting with Heather Matarazzo. I am so excited to talk to you. I came across I don't know, I was just strolling through TikTok randomly and I saw you pop up on there and I was like, I need to invite them to come on the show because, I mean, you've had such a robust career and you are still very busy. So thank you for your time. And I appreciate it. I'm excited to chat with you today.
I'm excited to chat with you too. Yeah, it's been it's been a time. I'm very thankful. I feel very grateful. I feel like I felt like I was in my 40s when I was in my 20s, and I'm just about to turn 40, and I feel like I'm in my 20s finally. So
yeah, no, I get that. It's very interesting. Like I said, I don't do much on TikTok other than just watch silly cat videos with my 8-year-old. But he was actually on TikTok and I saw you answering questions from fans because I think they find, and me too, I think too, your career so fascinating because your career, I mean, you started at a very young age and just Welcome to the Dollhouse, I think, is where you were sort of thrust into, the stratosphere of acting. But people ask you random questions on there and I love your responses because they're so honest and candid. What do people most connect you with? I mean, is it because you've just done so many like huge films, television shows? I mean, just the gamut for sure.
I mean, that's the thing. I am very fortunate that my community is as unique as I am. So there's no go-to answer, you know. Like if I have grown men come up to me, I'm like, oh, they most likely are going to talk about either Devil's Advocate or they're going to want to talk about Hostel 2 or
Yeah.
Dream. And then I find that they want to talk to me about Princess Diaries, and then I have like young women that come up to me and I think, oh, they for sure are going to want to talk about Princess Diaries and they're going to want to ask me about Annie and Julie. And then they want to talk to me about Welcome to the Dollhouse, or they want to talk to me about Scream or Hostel. I never know what I'm going to get. Okay. Every time I think that I'm like, oh, yep, I know what you're going to come talk to me about, I'm continuously surprised.
Yeah, I would think so. It's interesting because like a lot of actors get asked that question and it's kind of a joke where they can look at the person and sort of guess like the demographic as to well, for me, it definitely probably wouldn't be Princess Diaries, although I've seen that, but I would definitely say probably the latter, probably Scream or Hostel or even, I mean, because I think you've just been a part of so many different types of people's childhood. But definitely, I would say Welcome to the Dollhouse, again, is probably really, at least from what I've done in research, is what sort of launched you into this career.
Yes,
but because I remember you going on to Letterman when that film first started to really gain traction and things like that. So I guess my question would be is what sort of drew you into the industry? Because you started it at such a very young age, like most do, I would say, assumably.
I mean, I always use I always quote Morgan Freeman when he won the Golden Globe. I think it was for his Lifetime Achievement Award. And he talked about, he was like, I don't know if acting chose me or I chose it. And I feel that for me, it's a bit of both. I, for lack of a better term, I was discovered by someone when I was 7, and I, went in for my first audition and I booked it right off the bat. Went in for my second audition, booked that right off the bat, and I continually, I was steadily working, and then I got the opportunity to do Dollhouse when I was 11, and yeah, that was the one that kind of set my career ablaze, as it were. But I was never, I didn't, because back when I started was like the early 90s, you know, like late 80s, early 90s. And I never, fame then wasn't what it is now.
Right.
And I never wanted to become an actor to be famous. It really was, oh, I could do that. There was like a deep longing in my spirit that at that age I couldn't put into identifiable words. But looking back now, it was, I was just a pure raw nerve of feeling
Okay.
everything all the time. And as soon as I stepped into a character, everything quieted and made sense. And it was, oh, now I know how to utilize these emotions that are at my disposal, and they're given an appropriate channel through the emotional blueprint that the writer has provided.
Wow. I just find that so fascinating because I talk to so many different actors who have been in the business, for, the times vary, but I want to talk about something that you said I find interesting is that, you got started at this age and I think, if you're discovered, so to speak, and then your career just goes like it does. So when you say fame is different, like, is that because of social media now and sort of that seems to be part of the equation for a lot of people? Like, what are your followers? What is your presence like on social media? Because I understand that's a big part of it now, especially when it comes to films. They want to not just talk to you about talent, but they want to know what your social media presence is like. And are you going to be able to help sell tickets? Because the days have gone by now, I think, where the studio is just pumping endless amounts of cash to promote a film. If that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
that's
for
the impression
sure.
I get.
For sure. I mean, I feel like I've been put in a fortunate position where, it's not up to me whether or not a film does well. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the face, I'm not the main. I get to have that fun with the supporting roles, you know, and and within that too, yeah, there's definitely, the business has changed and fame has changed by way of social media and follower count and all of that stuff. And that is something that I've never, was always very difficult for me because it was, I feel most comfortable on TikTok out of all of the social media things. I feel like I understand TikTok well. It's easy. Whereas Twitter is just an intellectual masturbation session.
That's a good way to put it.
With some random like cat photos. And Instagram is I don't even know what Instagram is. But yeah, I mean, I remember a time like when a former manager of mine was like, you need to get these numbers up, casting directors like really love you and whatever, but they want to make sure you have at least 50,000 followers. And I'm like, wow. Dude, I have like a few thousand. Like, what do you want from me? So then it's that thing of having to put in extra work and extra time, wow, trying to manufacture numbers. And I'm not that person. You know what I mean? I don't know. I wasn't, it's that double-edged sword, right? Where I'm not a fan of bullshit.
Sure.
And so posting just to post and the self granulation or whatever it is, and that thing of like me, follow me, where the roles that I am seeking are seeking me, and every single role that I've gotten, I know has been meant for me. And I've just decided to erase myself from the narrative uh, that is prescribed and put forth by the industry of entertainment. It's not for me.
Yeah. So you're at a point now where you're just choosing the things that you want to do and that are important to you.
That's it.
As
That's
a
it.
storyteller, and not, and you're part of, I don't know, Shia LaBeouf said it kind of interestingly. It's like he's sort of in and surrounded Hollywood, but is not a part of it necessarily. And so for you, it's more of like you want to do things that you are passionate about, whether it's a big, studio picture like Scream, or maybe even Hostel, I guess would be considered studio, but that was sort of like an independent, those guys that put those movies together. I mean, I don't, they just happened to do something that was different. And then
Yeah.
Hollywood, so to speak, sort of discovered them later and was like, oh, we want to be a part of this. You know what I'm saying? Once,
yeah, that's how it always
once
goes.
it became so popular, because I know initially, like, I was watching an interview with those guys and they were talking about how nobody was interested in the story, but they were telling something that was so kind of different, and it wasn't like in the same vein as most horror genres were. And so you get to kind of do what you want and still be successful at it, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing is that I've done both.
Yeah, you've
Right?
done a lot.
Where I've put myself in positions where I've said yes to things when my heart was telling me no, because we live in a capitalistic society, and because because this had been my career for such a long time, and it's, well, I have bills to pay. So it's that thing of nobody's going to see this piece of shit, and I get to have my rent covered for the next 2 months.
Wow.
And it got to this point though where I started to feel gross, and like I was killing my inner artist just to survive. And it's not why I started. Like, it's not why I became an actor. I became an actor because I feel that I have a gift of being able to alchemize feelings and characters that I get to portray. I'm a really good channel. And when you start making decisions that aren't in service to the work but are in service to just survival, I was like, I need to do something else because this isn't working for me anymore. And it's been like I feel like a journeyman. It's been a really long process of how do you live in a capitalistic society while getting to keep your integrity, not only personally but professionally, and then also make a living that doesn't make you feel like garbage.
Yeah, no, I get it. I can't remember, I was watching some talk show, I think it was Stephen Colbert, and he said something like, Hollywood's coming up, on the 100th anniversary of the sign, and just Hollywood in general. And for lack of a better term, it's like a box of broken toys that needs to sort of, they were talking to Olivia Wilde about her film, Don't Worry, Darling. And, she said, it's like, well, when women directors are doing this, that, and the other, they're considered sort of like aggressive or calculated, but male directors, when they behave a certain way, they're considered, leaders and stuff like that. The
And
point
passionate.
Passionate. Yeah. Oh, I'm a passionate director. And, so it's kind of like things are changing. If you had to get your start now, as opposed to, 15, 20 years ago when you got started, I imagine, and I'm just guessing, it would probably be very difficult to have. I mean, you're obviously a very talented person, so there's no surprise that you've had the success that you've had, and I really do mean that. But maybe it's very true, because I mean, your body work is so robust. But maybe a young person coming into the industry now might face a lot more challenges. Do you get solicited for advice when you like go to these Comic Cons and stuff? Do you have people come up to you and ask you, how do I get started, or how do I begin the business?
I mean, I don't get a lot of those questions. I don't get a lot of those questions because I think that people again have this idea that, well, I'll just go, I'll make the most viral TikTok video, I'll do that thing, I'll like whatever, you know, they're not um yeah, I don't get that. I don't get that a lot. You know, it's surprising.
But so it's mostly just fans connecting with you. So if you had to give somebody advice to get started in the industry or just really any sort of creative space, what would that be? I mean, what
Start.
would yeah,
Start.
just do it. I mean, with
Start.
technology and cell phones, I mean, there's no reason.
I mean, here's the biggest thing. You just have to be a little mad and be willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Are you willing to be vulnerable? Are you willing to share yourself? Are you willing to, like, how much are you willing to share yourself? What is your intention behind sharing yourself? Like, and you can get lost in the fray sometimes with all of the intellectualizing about the thing when it really is like, oh, I'm just scared. I'm scared. And sometimes the only thing to circumvent the fear is to walk through it and just do it. Because the thought of the potentiality of what might happen if I do the thing is a lot more oppressive than actually just taking the action. And, you know, occasionally if you need to get a paper towel and wipe some egg off your face, so be it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got a little bit of a yolk facial. What do you want? You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough love, really, because the industry that you're in is just so brutal, you know, and although it's rewarding because you get to create great things that you've done.
Well, look at the Duplass brothers. Look at Robert Rodriguez. Look at Lynn Shelton. Look at all of these filmmakers. Like Lynn Shelton lived in Seattle. You know, the Duplass brothers, like, they didn't live in Los Angeles. They didn't go the typical route. They just wanted to make movies, and they were going to do what they had to do to create the stories that they wanted to create, and they were going to do it outside of the Hollywood studio system. And that's what I'm here for. You know, it's about getting to build a community where it's like, oh, like my wife and I were literally in the middle of crowdfunding a short / proof of concept right now, and we're just at the beginning of our professional life together in terms of where we desire to go as a creative team. And wow. We're leaving LA. We're moving to Michigan.
Yeah, a lot of people are leaving LA. It sounds like
yeah, we're leaving Los Angeles. We don't need to be here because the biggest thing that we want is to find that creative community.
Yeah.
Like, and I love words. I'm a huge fan of etymology, and I love breaking down words and getting to find the origin of things. And I just think of community, and I think of communion, and I think of just that coming together. And I've had some great mentors in that way, where I look at someone like Gary Marshall, who had the same crew with him for almost 30 years. Yeah. And there's a reason that those people desired to work with him again and again and again and again, because he was creating a sense of family where everybody had a say, and he was getting the best and brightest minds that he could find and surround himself with, because he knew that you can't create a movie or any piece of art in a vacuum.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a very busy day. I do have one last question. Again, we could talk for hours about your body of work. But the one film that I want to just expound on for just a brief moment, Saved. Coming from a religious background, growing up, evangelicalism, I found that film to be like, life really imitating art imitating life. I was a bit of a sleeper, and then I think even now I would say it's above a cult classic. Even the pastor skip, I went to a church where there was a skip. So let's talk about this film just briefly here, because it was so fascinating. Though I rewatched it recently, and I forgot how wild of a ride that film is.
You know what's so funny? I just Pardon me, like pardon all of the outside noise. I really
You're okay. Don't worry about it.
It's oh Brett, it's a time. It is a time. Just holding for sound. So regarding Saved, I got that script when I think I just turned 18, and I read the script. Jenna Malone had already been attached. Nobody else was attached at that point. I remember I met the director, Brian Danley, about it, and I loved it. And he originally wanted me for the role of Cassandra.
Okay.
Cassandra Edelstein. That ended up getting played by Eva Marie. And, you know, I was attached to that project for 2 years before we finally got it made and like brought on Mandy, and then Matt came on board, and Patrick, and then Mary Louise and Martin. And I remember we went to like a Jesus camp type thing to do some research. And at that time, you know, like I was the kid that always got kicked out of religious education classes. Okay. I was raised Catholic. And I never understood that idea of, well, why do you have to meet all of these conditions that God sets in order to receive unconditional love? Because doesn't that mean that it's kind of conditional? And I would get sent to the office. Asking questions like that, because it didn't make sense. And you know, I think that movie is more relevant today than it ever was, considering just the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade, the
100%
insane draconian measures that are that people in power are trying to push for anti-LGBTQ legislation. You know, it's a hot mess, and it's all under the guise of religion, you know, and I just think of that one scene with Hilary Faye, Mandy's character, and she throws that Bible at Mary.
Yes.
She's like, I'm filled with Christ's love. She's like, the Bible is not a weapon, Hilary Faye. You know, and
it's a great movie.
And it speaks to everything, because it speaks to the hypocrisy of you can't, it's you can't speak love out of one side of your mouth while spewing hate out of the other side.
Yeah.
You know, and love is love is love is love. Like Lin Miranda got it right, you know, like love is love. And Jesus said, like, the greatest commandment I give unto you is to love one another.
Yeah.
Like love each other as you love yourself. And my thing with that is always, well, it's pretty damn hard to love your neighbor when you don't even know how to love yourself.
I love it. Yeah, there's so many great scenes in that film. The speaking in tongues scene, I think, is probably one of my favorite. What is she saying? I think she's saying this. That's so good.
Saying she's got a hot pussy.
Yeah, that was great. Well, fantastic. I appreciate your time. This has been a real pleasure, just sort of taking a bird's eye view of your career. Best of luck to you and your wife on the move and exiting LA. And
thank you.
Excited to see what's next for you, Heather. Thank you so much for hanging out today.
Thank you. And support our crowdfunding campaign if you can. The green ribbon around Jane's neck.
Yes, we'll put a link in the show notes for this.
Woo-hoo!
Absolutely.